welcome. This is our fourth and final week in this series called Margin. My name is Paul McGinnis, one of the pastors here. And whether you're here with us in the room or whether you're watching our service online, I'm so glad that you've taken this time, and I hope that it will be worth it. And by the time we're done, you'll have an idea of how important margin is, not just for the external part of our life, but for the internal part as well. This is week 4, as I said, and so if you missed any of the others, you'd be wise to check that out. It's all on our website. I know that you'll enjoy that. And each week, as Mark has taken us through this series, he's pointed out what happens when we don't have margin in our lives. When we don't have margin, our emotions get strained, our relationships become shallow, and then what we're going to really drill down on today, our souls become shriveled. We don't like that, but we know it's true. Right? When we don't have margin, it doesn't just affect other people. It doesn't just affect our finances. It doesn't just affect things outside of us. It affects us deeply in our core. And we become kind of a shriveled, darker, older version of ourselves. And we don't want that. And you know this is true. You know that you need margin. I know this is true. I've taught on this before. In fact, the last time I was on the back of a treadmill teaching this very thing. Some of you may remember that. But I was recently reminded of how important this is, and I want to just share that story with you. It was actually a question that brought this back to my mind. And I love a good question. I love these, they call icebreaker questions, right? They're just kind of quirky, kind of get a conversation started. You can use it with your family around the dinner table. You can use it with a small group. We use them with our staff when we're introducing new staff members to the team. So here's a couple icebreaker questions, and maybe you can try these on for size on the drive home. Like this one, what is the scariest thing you've ever done for fun? So you could think about that. You could see how that could prompt some fun stories, some that you may want to share with your kids, some that you might not want to share with your kids. For me, it goes back to when I was in college and nearby Ricketts Glen. We're doing some hiking there, and me and a bunch of guys, we hiked to the top of a waterfall. That's right, you guessed it. Then we jumped. Yeah, that's right, thrill seeker right here. Your pastor, wild man, 25 years ago. And we made sure it was deep enough, and there were some guys there kind of marking the spot, so if we got off, we'd land on them instead of I don't know what we were thinking, but that was fun. That was kind of scary. Or how about this question? Would you rather have a rewind button or a pause button for your life? Ooh, that's an interesting one, right? Totally hypothetical, of course. Super easy for me because the pause button, I could not get it out in time. Right? There's no way I could pause because I just talked too quickly and I've already said the thing and I've already done the damage, so I just need the rewind button and I'd be like, oh, hold on. Ask me again how that dress makes you look. Let me try again because the first time I clearly botched it. Or, hold on, ask me again, is it this exit or the next exit? Because obviously it's my fault that we're lost now, and so let's just rewind. So for me, that's easy. And see, it just sparks some stories, some conversation. They're fun questions. But here's the one that got me. If you had one full day to do anything you want, what would you do? Right? That could be a fun question. It should be, right? It's supposed to bring to mind, what do you enjoy and what's life-giving? And it's hypothetical. Money's no object. You can go anywhere, be with anyone. And I froze. My mind went blank. I was literally asked this question in a group of people a few months ago. I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of anything I wanted to do, anywhere I wanted to go, anything that would be life-giving. I think I finally said, I don't know, take a nap? Like, seriously? This is the cliff-jumping pastor, and all you want to do is take a nap? Like, I had nothing. And that was, again, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against naps. I'm a fan of the big power nap. But this was a warning light on the dashboard. Right, this let me know something's not right, right? The tank is a little too empty. And at the time, that was true, right? My pace was too fast. My relationships were getting strained. I was having trouble breathing. I had to go get a stress test and see a counselor, which was super helpful, and get a chest x-ray and get some blood work done. And this was a warning sign to me that, you know what? I think there's not enough margin for your soul. And I was reminded of this very truth, and this is what I want to communicate to you today, and thanks for your concern. I'm in a much better place, on a much better path, and if there's one thing that I want to communicate to you, if there's only one thing that we need to know today, it's this. Jesus offers us the rest of our lives. And that play on words is intentional, right? Because no matter what your past has held, no matter what the rhythm has been up until now, the best is yet to come. Jesus will take you wherever you are, no matter what situation, and lead you into a place of rest, into a place of peace, into a place of purpose. And don't misunderstand me, this isn't laziness. This isn't, just circle back and move into your parents' basement. This isn't anything with no drive and no purpose and just kind of waffling. No, this is living a life that's worth living. Our lives are still full, but they're full of the right things. Jesus offers us the rest of our lives. And you don't have to take my word for it. Let's listen to Jesus. Let him speak for himself. In Matthew chapter 11, he says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Here's a good idea every time you read the scripture. Just take a little passage like that and then go through it a couple different times. Right? Look at it from different angles. Ask some questions. Be a journalist, right? Be an investigator. And that's what we're going to do with this passage. We're going to ask who and what and why and how. And see if we can look at this from a lot of different angles, like a diamond in the light, see it from different facets. And so first, who? Who is he talking to? Because maybe Jesus isn't even referring to us. Maybe this invitation is for someone else. So who is he talking to? It's very clear. All you who are weary and burdened. Anyone? Anyone weary? Just kind of worn out, tired. You need a nap. You're burdened, kind of weighed down by guilt, by fear, by other people's expectations, by what you think other people's expectations are. We're weary. We're burdened. Let me throw a few more descriptors in there. We're scattered, right? Just kind of bouncing from one thing to the next without really much purpose or plan. We're hurried. We don't really have time to focus and be present and leave things we're always leaving things half done as we kind of hurry on to the next thing. We're reactive. We're not actually proactive in deciding what we should be pursuing, deciding and going after what's best. We're just reacting to what other people think and feel and want, or what we think they feel and want. And then we're exhausted. We're weary and discouraged. We're unsure if we're even, moving in the right direction and living life at the right pace. Does that sound familiar? If not, I guess you can go. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, stick around because you're in good company, right? 77% of Americans, according to a recent survey, experience physical signs of stress. 77% of us. That's nearly 4 out of 5 of us. And this is who Jesus is talking to, all of you who are weary and burdened. That's who. Now, why? Why is Jesus calling? Why is he making this invitation? What's the offer? I will give you rest. You will find rest, not just for your bodies, though we'll talk about that, not just for your schedules, but for your souls. A deep inner peace. Anybody buying what he's selling? I'll take some of that, that's for sure. A settledness, a fulfillment. Just this confidence that our life is being lived well. Not perfectly, right? We're not going to get there, but at least a sense that God is with us as we walk through life, this inner peace. And I want you to notice that what Jesus is talking about here, this is not a limited time offer. This was not a once in a lifetime opportunity. He didn't just show up and mention this once. Right, this is a theme. This is a theme that echoes the very beginning of creation, the very dawn of creation, all the way back to the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 says this: "By the 7th day, God had finished the work that he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work." Now, regardless of what you think of the origin of the universe, regardless of what you believe about Genesis and figurative or literal, put all that to the side for now and don't miss this. Don't miss this pattern that God created. God, the God of the universe, the one who never grows tired and weary, the one who certainly doesn't need to rest, decides to rest. It's a good idea whether we need it or not. And if God thought it was a good idea, it certainly is. And so God has this pattern where he works first and then he rests. And so much could be said about that. But here's all I want to point out. That God encouraged the same pattern for us. He just flipped the order. See, God worked for 6 days. All of creation was done in 6 days, and then he rested. But which of those days did he create mankind? It was on the 6th day. The last day, the pinnacle of his creative genius was creating Adam and Eve and starting this human race. And then their first day on was a day off. How do you like that? They were created on the 6th day, and then the 7th day God rested and invited them to rest with him, to be with him, to abide with him. They didn't have to earn it. They didn't have to strive for it. They didn't have to work for it. They could just rest in God's presence. And then after that, they got to work together. After that rest, out of that place of rest, they then pursue their calling and their life's work. God creates this pattern, and he invites us into this rest with him, and then he sends us out, fueled for what we need. And Jesus reminds us of what God began at the very dawn of creation when he says, come to me, rest and abide with me, and then go out. So that's who, those who are weary and burdened. That's why I will give you rest for your souls. But how is Jesus going to pull that off? How does he actually accomplish this? Because our lives are very burdened and we are weary. We already talked about that. What are we going to do with that in order to get the rest? And Jesus says, take my yoke upon you. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, some of you just perked up because you're thinking breakfast foods. You're thinking eggs, you're thinking omelets, and you're like, what is Jesus talking about here? Bring to me your scrambled, broken selves, and I'll kind of sunny side up, light and fluffy, over easy. No, that's not what Jesus is talking about, but at least you're back with me now. There are a couple different uses of the word yoke. None of them have to do with breakfast. The first idea, it was really literal. Like a yoke was an actual piece of wood or sometimes metal. You could use it on animals. You could even use it on people, like on yourselves, and it would spread out the load, right? You'd have some oxen and you'd put a yoke on them, and it would allow whatever they were dragging, now it would spread out that load a little more evenly. People even used them sometimes. If they had to carry something big and they wanted to kind of strap it on their shoulders, that was a little bit easier to make that load easier to bear. Maybe the best modern example would be those baby carriers, right, that we strap on our back or on our front, and so we can carry the baby. The baby still weighs the same amount, and maybe you just don't have the hips that you need to kind of, this is where I'd use the rewind button and just ignore the hip metaphor. The idea being, whether it's a yoke or a baby carrier, it makes that burden a little easier to carry. And so that's the literal use of the word yoke. But then what happened in the first century is that teachers, and they were called rabbis, and Jesus was one of them, teachers that would want to help you figure out spiritual things, that would want to help you find that peace, find that relationship with God, reconnect your soul to God. They would have what they would call a yoke. And it was not a literal thing, it was a figurative thing. That was their teaching. Their teaching was their yoke. This is my interpretation of Scripture. This is my description of how you can find your way to God. My, way of life and my worldview was called a yoke. And teachers in that day, and really every religious system, has a yoke. Here's what you need to do and don't do and repent of and try a little bit harder, and here's the striving and the doing. And into that sea that started in the first century and continues right now, whether you talk about Hinduism or Buddhism or secularism or Islam, they all have this way. Here's what you have to do to get to God. And Jesus steps into that environment that has a very complicated, heavy yoke and different ways of getting to God. And Jesus says what no one else in all of history has ever been able to say. And he says, I can do that for you. You cannot do enough or try enough or work hard enough to get your own self to God. And so I will do that for you. I will take the yoke. I will carry the cross. I'll do the heavy lifting. You just stick with me. And if we're with Jesus, then we're in with God. And he says, take my yoke on you. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. Because I'll take your sin and I'll take your shame and I'll offer forgiveness. Jesus does what no one else can do then or now. He offers us a way to God that is easy and light. So that's the who, the why, the how. Now, what do we have to do to cash in on this? What do we have to do to tap in? What do we have to do to take him up on this offer? Well, let's start again. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What does he ask of us? Come to me. Learn from me. It's much simpler than we make it. And that word come, it very literally means come here. Any parent knows this, right? I have 4 fantastic kids, and sometimes I'll want them to come, and I'll say, insert kid's name here, hey, come here. And what do they say? What do you want? I think I pretty clearly just said what I want, didn't I? I want you to come here. And what do they want to do? They want to stay there. They want to keep doing what they're doing, keep watching the video or playing the game or reading the book or doing the thing. And maybe bend an ear in my direction or kind of look and see if they can catch my eye, and they want to add me into what they're already doing. But when I say come here, I mean I want you to stop what you're doing. Hit pause or power or shut the book or stop the thing or get out of bed and actually stop what you're doing, move in my direction until you're with me. You ever think that might be what Jesus means? And we hear Jesus say, come to me, and we say, what do you want? Because I'm busy, because I'm doing my thing, and I'm going 1,000,000 miles, and I got this on the schedule, and I got other things and people to talk to and impress and take care of. And Jesus says, no, I don't want you to just glance in my direction. I don't want you to just add me into your busy life. I actually want you to stop what you're doing. Stop spinning the plate. Stop juggling the ball. Stop whacking the molds. Actually put down your burdens, move toward me, and be with me. That's what come to me means. And it's the invitation that God's been whispering to us since the dawn of creation. And he still whispers it to us today. He says, come to me. Because here's the thing, Jesus doesn't sprint and he doesn't shout. He walks and he whispers. And so if we are going to spend time with Jesus, it's not going to be because he picks up his pace to keep up with us. And it's not going to be because he starts yelling louder over the noise that we've added into our lives. If we want to spend time with Jesus, we are the ones who need to make some rearrangements and turn down the volume and turn down the RPMs and move in his direction. And that invitation is always, always, always open to us. To come to me and learn from me. That literally means be my disciple. Follow me. You're not going to get it perfectly. That's not the point. But just learn how I do life and then try to do it similarly. Learn from me. Listen to this same passage, a paraphrase in a book called The Message. It says, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you will recover your life. I will show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly. Why don't we take him up on that? Why don't we take advantage of that offer? There really, honestly, is no good reason. There is one common excuse, though. You've probably thought it already. That sounds good. That sounds great. Of course I want that. I just don't have time. Time is the number one excuse. People are just too busy to live emotionally healthy and spiritually rich lives. Really? Is that really true, though? I know we say it. I know we might even believe it, but is it really true? Because it's kind of like saying, I just don't have time to fill the car with gas. I'm just going to keep driving. I don't have time to actually sharpen the saw. I'm just going to keep whacking away. I don't have time to recharge the battery. I'm just going to keep going. I don't have time to fix the leak in the roof while it's small. I'll just kind of see what happens. And you know that in any of those situations, it's kind of ludicrous to say you don't have time for that. Because it's only going to, ignoring those things, the gas or the leak or the battery, it's only going to make things worse. Of course you have time for it. If you want to continue driving the car, you make time to fill it with gas. Our souls are no different, right? We can say we don't have time to tend to them, but then they shrivel up, and then the life that we're living is really not a life worth living. So if you really believe this, if you really think, I just don't have time, I dare you, track it. Like if you couldn't figure out where your money was going, you get a paycheck and then it's all gone, you would just track it. You'd figure out, hey, where am I spending my money? And let's kind of figure that out. Do the same thing with your time. Track it. Do an audit for 1 week. Just track where you spend your time, because guess what? You have the same amount as all of us, 24 hours a day. 168 hours a week. Everyone in history has had the same, and we all spend it on something. Both the frantic, hurried people and the people who live with a well soul. Right? We all spend it on something, and so just track that and figure it out. Maybe you really are too busy, and maybe some things need to change. Think of it like any other relationship. Right? If you want to start a relationship with someone, or you want to build a relationship with your spouse, it's going to require a certain amount of time. And if you end up saying, you know what, I really just don't have time to chat with you, or to go on an occasional date, or to connect with you, well, then you're just not going to have a good relationship. It's sad, but that's the reality. And it's no different with Jesus. See, Jesus never just wanted us to believe in him, or to agree with him, or to just, say we're a Christian. Jesus actually wants us to come to him and learn from him. He wants us to spend time with him. And if we're not ready and willing to do that, well, then we're not actually following Jesus. And I don't think that's what we want. We don't want to head down that path that leads to a shriveled soul and a shipwrecked life. We want something different. And so we're going to need to do something different. We're going to need to rearrange our lives. We're going to need to live differently than our society and our culture. We're going to need to do whatever it takes, because Jesus offers the rest of our lives. And now it's up to us to take him up on that. A pastor and an author named John Ortberg, he was talking to his mentor named Dallas Willard. And John asks one of those great questions. He says, what do I need to do to become the me I want to be? Wow, that's powerful. There's a good question. And there's a pause, and Willard thinks about it for a moment, and then he says, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Now, there was no Twitter at the time, otherwise that would have broken the internet. Right? And John quickly scribbles it down on a napkin or a piece of paper, and then he says, okay, what else? And Willard says, there is nothing else. Hurry is the great enemy of our spiritual life in our day. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. Corrie ten Boom said, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Carl Jung said, hurry is not of the devil. Hurry is the devil. And so what do we need to do to unhurry our lives, to give margin for our souls? Let me give you 3 ideas. These are not advanced. You can start anytime, but they're not easy. They'll take you the rest of your life to master. These are not quick fixes, but certainly by now you know we're not looking for something quick. I just want you to start taking baby steps in the right direction, away from this pace that our culture has us going, and toward a Jesus who invites us to come and learn. And the first is to rest your body. The second is to recenter your soul. And the third is to renew your mind. Rest your body. Let me just give you 5 ideas. I made these up. These aren't inspired. Take them or leave them. Schedule your sleep. Schedule your sleep. You can actually decide when you go to bed, you know. You don't have to, wait until there's nothing left on Netflix. You could actually decide when to go to bed. You could start with when you want to wake up and make a plan for your morning routine that's going to keep you from being hurried, and then just roll it back 8 hours, right? Everybody knows that's kind of the industry standard. That's what most of us need. Maybe you need less. Maybe you need more. Pay attention to your body and schedule your sleep, and just decide when you're going to call it a night. Second, decide ahead of time what you're going to watch and how much you're going to watch. I got nothing against YouTube or Hulu or Netflix or Prime. It's great. It's a great servant. It's a terrible master. And too many of us are just too lazy, and we let it become the master, right? And it always keeps you longer than you want to stay and takes more than you want to give. And come on, be honest about this. When is the last time that you binge watched something and then felt rested and alive and living on purpose? Never? Again, I got nothing against it, but you be the master. You decide what you're going to watch and how much. Then number 3, mute the commercials. I love this, right? You don't have to listen to what everybody else wants you to buy and listen to why everybody else wants you to be discontent with your life. Just mute it. Just hit the button. Get rid of that noise. Talk with the people that you're watching with. Talk about that thing that you're watching and how it interacts with your life. And then if you want to take it to the next level, do the voiceover work yourself, right? My family and I, we love doing this. We'll mute the commercial, and then we'll just make up what they're saying. And we'll decide, how to get that stain out of that, thing and what to do with the lawn and what happened when you drive that car. We'll just make that up. And we sometimes have more fun on our voiceover commercials than we do watching the actual movie. Mute the commercials. Number 4, watch the sunset instead of your phone. God is calling us. He's inviting us to be in his presence. And he whispers to us 1,000,000 times a day through sunsets and sunrises and thunderstorms and snowfalls and mountains and trees. And how quickly we just race through life and we miss it. What if we were to take time? And just, I don't mind which one you take, but if you were to take the sunset, you also get this added bonus of the God-ordained red light that he sends with the sunset that releases melatonin into our system. And it's a natural hormone that just gets us ready for rest and helps us to kind of connect with that circadian rhythm of the rising and falling of the day. And maybe that sunset, maybe that's a good reminder to get rid of the blue light that stimulates your brain and keeps you more active and on edge. When the sun sets, just let your phone go to bed. Connect with people. Start to rest your body. And number 5, walk the dog. Notice I didn't say get a dog or train a dog. Right? That is anything but restful. But we've already crossed that bridge, so now we might as well walk it, right? We finally gave in, and over the summer got a mini. They lied about the mini, a mini golden doodle. And now I'm really enjoying every day we get a walk. A 15-minute walk releases serotonin into your system. That's the happy hormone. You really do start to feel better after just a 15-minute walk. And get this, you don't even need a dog. Just go for a walk. You don't need to be a smoker to take a smoke break, right? You can actually just rest, take a walk, look at the sunset, enjoy being in nature. Rest your body. You decide. And then recenter your soul. Quiet yourself in God's presence. Be still, listen, reflect, practice praying. There's no wrong way to do it. Practice journaling. Just start writing some things that are on your heart or on your mind. I know that you have heard of this practice already because it's all around us in our culture right now. Our society is real big on this. It's called mindfulness. It's called, being present, practicing your breathing, stillness, and slowing down. I'm all for it. The only problem is that our society has taken this ancient practice that Jesus modeled, and they've just removed the most important part, and that's Jesus, right? When our society tells us to be still and mindful and practice your breathing, essentially they're saying be still and pretend that you are God. Pretend that you can handle all this yourself. Pretend that you've got what it takes. We all know that's not true. We cannot meditate our way to God. That's why he made his way to us. And he says, be still and know that I am God. And so yes, be still, but realize that you're in his presence. And he invites you to cast your cares on him. And he invites you to listen and to learn and to know that you're loved. So recenter your soul, rest your body, and then finally renew your mind. You get to decide what thoughts you think. You get to decide what goes through your mind. And it's time for us to stop being conformed and being pressed into the pattern of this world and to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. It's time for us to put off the earthly thoughts, the discouraging thoughts, and to put on thoughts that are of God. And in that process, we are made new. It's time for us to stop thinking and dwelling on earthly things, but to start thinking and setting our minds and our hearts on heavenly things. And there is no better tool for that than the Scripture. We have what generations past would have longed for. We have the Word of God. It's living. It's active. It will give you everything you need for life and godliness. When Jesus says, come to me, learn from me, we have what no other generation before has had. We have the Gospels. We have these biographies of Jesus' life and death and resurrection. Spend time in those. They're called Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Just take one of them at a time. Take one chapter a day and just spend time reading that. Learn from Jesus. Ask yourself, what's happening here? Summarize that chapter. What's interesting here? What stands out to me? What's God speaking to my heart? And then what's next? What's happening? What's interesting? What's next? Ask some of those questions of one chapter. Do it from now until Easter and see what happens. Rest your body. Recenter your soul. Renew your mind. It's exactly what Jesus offers us to do. You are too busy. You are not too busy for that. There's nothing better you could be doing with your time. I've been doing this for a long time, constantly nudging you toward the next step in your spiritual life and your journey. And if I could just have one wish, if I could just have one thing that I would wish for you, and it would be granted. One step that you could take. If I could wave that magic wand and just get it. The one thing that I would pray for, that I would wish for, that I would hope for more than anything else, is that you would spend the first chunk of every day in the presence of your Heavenly Father, reminding yourself of who you are and who He is. That you would spend that time resting and recentering and renewing. That you would reflect on Him, that you would read His Word, that you would talk back to Him, that you would find that that's where you get charged and recharged and sharpened and refueled for the day. If I had one wish, it would be that you would do what we're about to do in a few moments here. That you would take Jesus up on His offer when He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, come to me, and I will give you rest." And I know that in those moments you will hear the voice of God saying, be still, my child, and know that I am God."